said it wanted to be friends. When it said that, it put its hand in mine, and it may have looked like a human hand, but it was heavy. It felt like a wet leather bag full of heavy stones. Sharp stones. I pulled my hand away quickly and got up to leave. By this point, I was just about sick of this weird thing that looked like a person, but was not a person, and talked in riddles. It made no move to stop me as I headed towards the door. As I was about to exit, though, it called after me and said if I was interested in saving your life, it would be waiting at Hamwell Cemetery.
Sorry.
Excuse me? If she would be interested in saving John's life? Excuse me? Are there like constant hits just put on for the head archivist of the Magnus Institute? Is there like a situation where they start, getting too close to some kind of truth that these entities put hits out on them? What? What's going on, everybody? John Matrix here. Hope you're all having yourselves a wonderful day wherever you're at. Whenever you're watching this, we're going to be jumping into another Magnus Archives episode here. We're going to be jumping into episode number 26, A Distortion. Links, as always, will be down below in the description to the Magnus Archives playlist, the Rusty Quill Podcast YouTube channel, and to their website. Please do me a favor. If you've been enjoying this series as much as I have, be sure to go to their YouTube channel, like all the videos that you've enjoyed, hit that sub button if you haven't already, and check out their Patreon, check out their YouTube memberships, check out their website, or any kind of ways that you can give them some extra love and support if you would like to do so. You can do the same for my channel if you would like to. There's a join button underneath the video, as well as a link in the description to the YouTube membership benefits and tiers that I have to offer. So you can check those out if you'd like to. If you would like to give me some extra love and support. There's also playlists for other universes that I've done reactions to, the SCP Foundation, Warhammer 40k, Greylock, Backrooms, etc. So if any of that would have any interest for you, you can check those out in the channel and see if you'd like to check that stuff out. Regardless, thank you guys very much for coming in and hanging out. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you do, consider leaving a like and a sub. It helps me and the channel grow. I greatly appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule and day to do so. All right, with all of the YouTube plugs said and done, let's get into this. Again, this is episode 26 of the Magnus Archives, A Distortion by the Rusty Quill Podcast. This seems really quiet. I'm gonna boost the volume up a little bit more again. Some of their episodes seem really quiet for some reason.
Rusty Quill presents the Magnus Archives.
More ominous strings that string ominously.
Episode 26, A Distortion.
A distortion. There's a distortion in the Force.
Are you sure you're all right to do this now? You can take a few days off to recover if you need.
No, it's fine. Tim's getting me a coffee, and I'd rather get this down while it's still fresh in my mind.
Okay.
Besides, you didn't give
Another new character, I assume here. New voice actress. Okay. We're getting more people involved. Let's do it.
Martin any time off when he had a bad experience.
Martin had to start living in the archives. I mean, I could hardly give him a holiday in the office. Anyway, he wasn't injured.
It's just a scratch, John. I'll be fine. Can we begin?
Okay. Statement of Sasha James, Assistant Archivist at the Magnus.
I thought this was Sasha. Yeah. The voice sounded familiar. But we haven't actually heard her give an actual statement yet. So this is her first statement.
London. Regarding...
Let's just call it a series of paranormal sightings.
Statement recorded direct from subject, 2nd of April, 2016.
Interesting. So in the time frame of things, this is 2016 as their present, right? That's what it seems to be. Okay. So that the previous episode we watched was actually very recent then.
Right. Well, I'm sure you know, I was skeptical about how dangerous this Jane Prentiss was when you first suggested Martin stay in the archive.
Ooh, Jane Prentiss. Okay, we're getting back to this with the maggots and everything dealt with Martin. Okay.
I mean, it's not that I didn't believe him about what happened. It just seemed, well, Martin is a great researcher, but his self-preservation instincts are not the strongest.
I don't know, man. Okay, that man fortified his place and held out under siege for 13 days, rationed his food and water and whatnot. Okay, I mean, I feel like, the man survived. I feel like that's some survival instincts kicking in there, right? I mean, he sounds like the kind of like innocent, nerdy character, but I mean, the man made it through. You got to give him some respect.
To be frank, I thought that if this Prentiss were a danger everyone seemed to think, then he'd almost certainly be dead. Don't get me wrong, I mean, I've read the same statements and profiles as you, so I know how many people have died because of her. What was it? 6 hospital staff when she was first admitted?
6 from colonization, and a 7th with a broken neck from her escape.
Interesting.
But that was 2 years ago, and whatever she is now, it sounds like her condition is degenerating. I just wasn't sure how much damage she'd still be capable of. So I guess I didn't take as much care as I should have when I was coming into the Institute yesterday. The thing is, I'm still not sure how much of a threat she is.
So did she try to break into the Institute? Did Jane Prentiss try to break into the Institute? Is she still trying to go after Martin? That's kind of what it sounds like here. It sounds like Sasha was coming into the Institute and Jane attacked her. Huh.
I've seen plenty of those silver worm things squirming about outside, same as you, and I made a point to step on them every time. What happened just...
Bro, like, get some Raid, man. You know what I'm saying? Like, just keep some bottles of Raid on you, and every time just like... at this point, I wouldn't even want to, like, step on them, because, I mean, who knows what kind of supernatural stuff gets attached to their, the soles of your feet or whatever, your shoes, and you're walking around spreading their, whatever. I don't know, man. I don't trust it. Get some cans of Raid and just bomb them.
Made things more complicated, I guess. I'm not really sure what to think. I'll start with the first thing I noticed. I live up near Finsbury Park, and my building is old, Victorian, I think, and though it's been repaired and maintained quite well, it's got all sorts of strange little quirks. One of these is the windows. The actual windows in the flats are fine, but the stairwell, they have slightly warped glass, where the windows have those little bubbles. Looking down on the street below can be a bit strange, as the glass bends the light and distorts whatever's below it. I never really paid much attention to it until a few days ago, but it's not a new thing. It was the day before yesterday when I first saw it. When I'm heading down the stairs in the morning, I sometimes like to spend a few seconds looking out of the window at the people on the street below. I'll move my head so that I see them through the warped glass, and they'll distort like a funhouse mirror. It's a bit daft, but I have a pretty dreary commute down to Victoria, so I take my fun where I can get it. Well, on that morning, I paused before the window and noticed one of the warped figures below was off, slightly.
They're in the little Slytherin.
Too tall. The limbs and body were very thin and almost wavy, like they didn't have any structure or bones in them. I couldn't make out a face, but it was the hands that were most bizarre.
So, I mean, okay, I'm assuming she's talking about Jane Prentiss here. So, it's interesting, right? Because I'd made mention of this in the Colony episode with Martin, right? Where it's like, if she had been sitting outside her door the whole time, and he's, living in an apartment complex, which they don't say one way or the other in the episode, but I guess, you can assume that likely he's living in some kind of apartment complex, that no one else sees her, right? So, I mean, obviously there's supernatural stuff going on. So I wonder if is it a situation where anyone she like marks as a victim is able to see her, but no one else can. You know what I mean? Because she's like out here, it seems like during the day, and Sasha seems to be able to see her, distorted through the window, but you would think a strange looking woman, that's like dirty, wearing some kind of overcoat or whatever, and has all these little maggots falling off of her. People would notice that, right? You would think people would notice that, but obviously, again, supernatural stuff going on here. So, well, I know. I'm giving some speculations here before we get into the rest of what she has to say.
They seemed to be stretched and inflated by the distorted light until they were almost the size of the rest of the torso. Their fingers were long and stiff and seemed to end in sharp points. It stood completely motionless, and I could feel it staring at me. Moving my head to the side, I saw that the actual person I had been looking at was a large man with long blonde hair. He was neither stood still nor facing me, instead moving around the display of the flower shop opposite my building. Nothing about the guy seemed especially out of place, but I made a mental note to keep a lookout for him. I checked again through the bubble of the bended glass, and again I saw that tall figure with its limp arms and huge hands. Now, you know me, John. I'm not exactly the bravest person in the world. I generally avoid horror, and I tend to stay off roller coasters in the rare situation I have a chance to ride them. So I was surprised as anyone that this undeniably sinister figure wasn't causing me more distress. I mean, I was a bit nervous, sure. I've never had any direct experience with the supernatural before, and the more I looked and checked and double-checked, the more sure I was that supernatural was exactly what it was. To be honest, I was surprised how quickly I accepted that. I've always considered myself a bit of a skeptic, and until recently I'd have said working at the Institute only made me more so. Anyway, I watched it for about 10 minutes, until the blonde man brought a small bunch of lilies and walked away. Once he was gone, the distorted figure with the long hands disappeared as well. I headed down into the street and over to the flower shop. The woman working there gave me a bit of a confused look when I asked if there had just been a tall blonde man in her shop. She said yes, there had, and no, she hadn't noticed anything strange. And was I looking to buy some flowers? I was quite confused myself, and on a bit of an edge when I left.
Interesting.
I was already late for work, though, so I decided to ignore it and just keep an eye out. Sure enough, it wasn't too long before I saw him again. There's a small cafe I generally pop into when I head to work in the morning. I love the Institute's building, of course, it's beautiful, but from a money point of view, I really wish it wasn't in Chelsea. Everything round here is so expensive. I generally walk down from Victoria Station. It's a long walk, but quite pretty, and it gives me a chance to pick up a coffee on the way. As I said, I was running late that morning, so I was a bit conflicted about whether to get one, but as I looked in the window, I saw a familiar figure at one of the corner tables. Again, the blonde guy wasn't looking in my direction, nor did he seem to give any indication that he was aware of my existence. He was there, though, and I was on the verge of walking in and confronting him when I noticed the time and decided getting to work was more important. Besides, what's that old saying? Once is happenstance, twice is coincidence, 3 times is enemy action. I decided that if he turned up a 3rd time, then I would ask him something. I don't really know what I was planning to ask him. Are you secretly a monster? Probably would have been a great opener.
Yeah.
When I got here, I realized I needn't have worried so much about the time. You were having some argument with Tim.
So, I don't remember the episode with the Flesh Man or whatever, right? I don't remember the name of that one. Where the statement giver's like best childhood friend or whatever got a hold of one of the Lightner books and, started doing some weird stuff and turned into some weird monster. I wonder if this tall blonde man that she's talking about is him, right? and like he somehow like has an illusion or is able to hide what he looks like, but somehow through her distorted view, she's able to see what he actually looks like, or because of her ties to the Magnus Archives, it lets her do that. I don't know. I'm just wondering if there's a potential connection there with that one.
About, who's that architect he's obsessed with?
Robert Smirk.
Yeah, that's the one. So I was starting to regret not getting a coffee and talking to Tall, Blonde, and Monster, since it didn't seem like I'd have missed much. I got on with my work, did some filing, cross-checked a few statements with police incident reports. I mean, I guess I don't need to tell you what a day working the archives entails. It was a quiet day, aside from when Martin thought he saw one of those silver worms and we spent half an hour checking for it.
Yes, I remember.
Come on, it's not his fault he's being stalked by some weird living hive.
It's true.
I know.
I mean, well, technically it is. Technically it is. He did break and entering and get into her little like nest hive and drop his phone there, and then she's been tracking him ever since. Technically it is kind of his fault. Technically.
Would have to have been Martin, wouldn't it? I mean, anything goes wrong around here, it always seems to happen to him. Anyway, we're getting off topic. Why didn't you report this?
Seriously? If a member of the public came in, you would have torn that statement to shreds. No, I figured I'd get more evidence, or it wasn't worth mentioning. Nothing else had happened until I left work. It must have been about 6:30, so the sun was just about starting to go down, and I headed back up towards Victoria. The first thing I noticed out of the ordinary was that the cafe was still open. Normally they shut up about 6 o'clock, but the lights were on and the door was open. I couldn't see anyone behind the counter though, and there was only one customer. He sat there in the exact same position he'd been in that morning, drinking what could easily have been the exact same coffee. I looked around to see if there was anyone else who could confirm what I was seeing. The street was empty, but as I looked, a car drove past. In the curving glass of its tinted windows, I saw him there, the weird, distorted body, rail thin and limp, the hands huge and sharp. And then the car passed on, and I turned back to see a normal-looking man. But now, for the first time, he was looking at me. He gestured to the chair across from him, clearly inviting me inside.
Creepy.
I don't know why I wasn't more scared going in there.
I mean, he could just be like, hey, this chick's staring at me. Do you want to come sit down and, talk and have a coffee? But also, kind of creepy.
But I wasn't. My curiosity apparently conquered my nervousness. He didn't speak when I sat down, and I saw his coffee cup was empty. Whatever was inside had dried up hours ago. He seemed to be waiting for me to ask him a question. So I asked him what he was. He laughed at this, the first sound I'd heard him make, and it sounded unnatural, like he was laughing very quietly, but someone had turned up the volume so I could hear it. He said it didn't matter what he was, that he couldn't describe it even if he wanted to. What was the phrase he used? How would a melody describe itself when asked?
How would a melody describe itself when asked? That's actually kind of a baller reply if you think about it.
This put my back up a bit, to be honest, and I told him if he was going to talk in cheap riddles, I was just going to leave. He actually apologized. Told me I could call him Michael.
Michael.
I didn't want to call him Michael. It didn't seem to fit somehow, and the way he said it made me think that it definitely was not his name. Still, it wasn't like I had any other name for him. No, not for him. For it. It sat there, clearly waiting for me to ask another question, so I did. I asked it what it wanted and was told that it wanted to help.
Help? With what?
That's what I said. Did it want to stop Jane Prentiss? It laughed that weird laugh again and told me that I had no idea what was really going on. It didn't sound like it had any intention of telling me, though. It just seemed like it was amused by my attempts to understand. Then it said it didn't care if I or my companions lived or died, but that the Flesh Hive was always rash.
The Flesh Hive is always rash. Well, I mean, that could be one way to describe Jane Prentiss, I guess.
It said it wanted to be friends. When it said that, it put its hand in mine, and it may have looked like a human hand, but it was heavy. It felt like a wet leather bag full of heavy stones. Sharp stones. I pulled my hand away quickly and got up to leave. By this point, I was just about sick of this weird thing that looked like a person, but was not a person, and talked in riddles. It made no move to stop me as I headed towards the door. As I was about to exit, though, it called after me and said if I was interested in saving your life, it would be waiting at Hamwell Cemetery.
Sorry.
Excuse me? If she would be interested in saving John's life? Excuse me? Are there like constant hits just put on for the head archivist of the Magnus Institute? Is there like a situation where they start, getting too close to some kind of truth that these entities put hits out on them? What?
As I was about to exit, though, it called after me and said if I was interested in saving your life, it would be waiting at Hamwell Cemetery.
Sorry. Saving my life?
Yeah. It called you by name.
Oh.
You and Martin and him.
That's unsettling.
I was just about to say that's a little unsettling. It knows them by name and who they are and like seemingly has a hit out on them. Obviously, someone's been watching the Magnus Institute here and who works there. Interesting.
It really was. At the time, I just tried to ignore it. I went home and I got as much sleep as I could. I don't know if you noticed how tired I was yesterday, what with Tim's April Fool's joke and everything.
Don't remind me.
Well, I was a bit of a mess. I checked the cafe on the way in and on the way home. I even went down there on my lunch, but...
She waited a whole day after this event to say anything? Like, I mean, someone literally threatened the lives of your coworkers, man. I feel like it would be pretty important to immediately go to them and be like, hey, man, this is some weird shit. I had some kind of coffee, date with some creature, and he says there's a hit out on you guys. I don't know. You know what I'm saying? I feel like you would want to mention that as soon as possible.
Michael wasn't there. Part of me wanted to tell you about it immediately to make a statement.
Now, the name Michael, I mean, we've heard of other characters named Michael, but I don't think that's a reference to anyone we like specific, right? Like, in the Calliope episode, I think, like, one of the relatives that he did like a genealogy on was like Michael, and then the mother of Jared Key, right? Maybe the father and mother of Jared Key, I think, is like what that passed down to, or something along those lines. So I don't know. Maybe this is Jared's father, Michael. Maybe he's also some kind of weird thing, and we're just being introduced to him now. I don't know.
But even if you believe me, I knew you'd try and talk me out of going to Hamwell Cemetery, and I had just about made my mind up to go. I didn't know if what Michael had said was a threat or a warning or just a lie, but I decided I couldn't take the chance, so I went to the cemetery. The sun was starting to go down when I got there, and the gates of the graveyard were lit with a bright orange of the dying light. It had been raining earlier that day, and the pools of water reflected the vivid colours of the sky. Hanwell is an old cemetery, and past the walls I could see the weathered old gravestones standing silent. As it turned out, I didn't have to go inside. Michael was waiting for me next to the tall iron gates when I arrived. I caught a glimpse of its reflection in one of the deep pools of rainwater, and shuddered as I saw it again, the warped body and swollen, bony hands. It didn't say anything when I arrived, just nodded at me to follow. I have no idea how long it stood there waiting for me. I expected to go into the graveyard, but instead, Michael started walking down the road towards a nearby row of houses. The sign on the road said, Azalea Close. Most of the buildings were in good repair, but there was one at the end that looked abandoned. It might have been a pub at one point, but now all the windows were boarded with metal sheets and covered with dirt and graffiti. The door, however, was open and swinging gently. Michael went inside, clearly expecting me to follow, so I did. Inside was dark and dusty. I was annoyed with myself that I hadn't thought to bring a torch, but just
Everyone forgets to bring a flashlight, man.
enough of the setting sun came through the door for me to see by. It clearly had once been a pub, and the bar appeared to be intact, though riddled with woodworm. Sitting on top of it was what looked like a builder's kit with a toolbox and a small fire extinguisher. I was just about to ask Michael why we were here when I heard it. A low, wet groan coming from the far end of the room where the light didn't reach. It sounded like someone in a great deal of pain. I walked towards the noise. As I got closer, my eyes began to adjust, and I saw the floor was covered in pale, writhing shapes.
Cool.
I had to listen to Martin's statement after he recorded it, so I knew what to expect. But hearing about something doesn't even come close to seeing it, to smelling it. I expected to see what Martin described, a squirming mass that was once Jane Prentiss, but the figure slumped against the wall looked like it was once a man. The worms wriggled in and out through the holes in his skin. The Flesh Hive, Michael had called it, and the silver things formed clustered knots where his eyes used to be. I couldn't help it. I gasped. It wasn't a loud sound, and given how sick the whole situation made me feel, I think I actually was quite composed. It was loud enough, though. The head snapped around to face me, dislodging a small cascade of twisting shapes. The mouth opened as he tried to scream, but that wasn't what came out of his mouth. The worms also seemed to have taken notice and began to move towards me at an alarming speed. I backed away, but slipped on a piece of loose wood and fell into the bar. I glanced desperately at Michael, but it just watched me, its face unreadable. I started to try and stamp on the worms as they approached, but there was just too many of them. Staggering to my feet, I felt my hand come to rest on something cold and metal, the fire extinguisher. Without thinking, I pulled the pin out and squeezed the handle. A cloud of gas shot out, and to my surprise, the silver worms began to shudder and recoil, shrivel.
Interesting. So it's almost like he brought her there to test her, right? And to show her, like, how you can deal with these things. Weird.
And dying. I began to walk forward, catching every last one in the jet of gas. Finally, I found myself standing over the mass of pitted and hollow skin that was once a man. He shuddered violently as the gas engulfed him, and then lay still. I was breathing heavily, and the CO2 from the fire extinguisher was making me feel lightheaded. For some reason, I felt like I should check his pockets. They were empty except for a wallet. It was stained with blood and other substances, but the name on the driver's license was still readable. Timothy Hodge.
Timothy Hodge. Isn't that... that name's familiar. Is that the same guy from the Spider episode? No, it was him in that first one. Okay. So yeah. He's the one that ended up hooking up with the chick that was infested, essentially. Right? Okay.
As I stood there, staring at the wallet, I felt a sharp pain in my right arm. I looked up to see Michael reaching into my shoulder. Its fingers were long and distorted as they reached through my skin, cutting it like paper. I screamed. After a few seconds, it withdrew its hand. Held there was a single silver worm, wriggling pathetically in its grip. I hadn't even felt the thing burrowing into my arm. After that, it's all a bit of a blur.
This is a very fascinating episode so far. So there's like a whole other creature here that seems to be against like Jane Prentiss and whatever she is or whatever she represents, and is trying to show people in the Magnus Archives essentially how to defend themselves against it, and even removes one of the parasites from Sasha that she didn't even realize had latched itself onto her and gotten under her skin. This is very fascinating.
Remember, I was going to phone the police, but Timothy Hodge's corpse was gone, and I was worried about trespassing, so I just sort of wandered away. Michael, or whatever it was, had gone as well. Eventually, I found my way back to the Institute, where I must have woken up Martin, and, well, here we are.
Yes, I suppose we are.
So, what do you think?
I don't really know. We can look into it more later.
I should really quit, you know. We all should. I don't think this is a normal job. I don't think this is a safe job.
You're probably right. Do you want to quit?
It's interesting hearing John's voice here. He seems kind of like shocked and like taken back a little bit here by this fact that there was a hit on him. I've thought for a while that John knows more of what's really going on than what he's led on to in some of these episodes. And that's why some of the episodes he seems more skeptical, because he's like, nah, that's just bullshit. That's not actually what's really going on. That's not a part of the things that he knows about or something like that. You know what I mean? So the fact that he's, I don't know, it sounds like he's kind of contemplative a little bit, but also a little worried, I guess. I don't know.
No, I'm just too damn curious, I suppose. You?
No. Whatever's going on, I need to know. Get some rest. Statement ends. Obviously, there is little we can really do to follow up Sasha's experience. If it was any of the others, I might have cause to doubt, but she has always been the most level-headed of the team. And if she says that this is what happened, then I believe her.
Hey.
This does at least explain what happened to Timothy Hodge, whose disappearance shortly after making his statement in late 2014 has been something of a concern since I discovered it. It seems odd how different the effect of Prentiss's infestation was on him and Harriet Lee, but without more information, I don't have a working theory on why that might have been. The thing that most disquiets me about Sasha's statement is this Michael. She seems pretty convinced that he was not human, at least not in the conventional sense. Almost every statement I've catalogued has engaged with the paranormal in some form of antagonistic relationship. The idea that there are things out there like that that want to help us.
Yeah, that's fascinating.
For some reason, that makes me more uncomfortable than the worm-infested creature stalking the Institute. Sasha has taken a few days off to recuperate. And I'm having a word with Elias about getting some extra CO2 fire extinguishers for the archive.
Would be smart.
Recording ends.
Very interesting episode. Very interesting.
The Magnus Archives is a podcast distributed by rustyquill.com and licensed under a Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial Share-alike International License. Today's episode was written and performed by Jonathan Sims. It was produced by Alexander J. Newell, Mike LeBeau, and Murray Porter, and directed by Alexander J. Newell. To comment on episodes, make donations, and view links, images, videos, and show notes, visit rustyquill.com. Rate and review us on iTunes, visit us on Facebook, tweet us on Twitter @TheRustyQuill, or email us at mail@rustyquill.com. Thanks for listening.
Thanks for making such a cool show. You heard them. You heard all the ways you can check them out. Links are down below in the description, as always, to the Magnus Archives playlist, the Rusty Quill Podcast YouTube channel, and to their website. Please do me a favor, if you've been enjoying this series as much as I have, go to their YouTube channel, like all the videos that you've enjoyed, hit that sub button on their channel if you haven't already, and check out their website, check out their Patreon, check out their YouTube membership stuff if you would like to give them some extra love and support. This episode has a lot of interesting implications, and it kind of goes back to the previous episode where I was speculating, right, that there are potentially different factions going on here that could be fighting each other in certain ways, maybe certain entities. Again, to kind of like make it analogous to the Warhammer 40k universe in a bit, you know, the Chaos Gods in that universe are constantly warring and fighting with each other. They call it the Great Game. So I'm wondering if there is some kind of similar thing going on here in the Magnus Archives universe where these various entities are fighting each other for whatever reason. Either it's, you know, vying for power, vying for more worshippers, vying just for whatever reason it would, you know, could be. And of course, going back to the previous episode, episode 25, The Growing Darkness, I believe is what the title was. You know, we're seeing different symbologies of an eye open and an eye closed, and, you know, could be different factions going at it with there. But now also it seems like there's different creature entities here in this episode that potentially are fighting each other for whatever reason. Like, who is this Michael character? What purpose does, what benefit does he get out of helping the Magnus Institute protect themselves against Jane Prentiss and her? Essentially, it seems like she's trying to still get after Martin when he's living there. You know, there's worms, you know, all over there, all over the Institute they're finding, etc. And so, you know, through the events of this episode, he essentially takes Sasha to, you know, this abandoned house where one of these, Timothy Hodge, who was a character we heard of in a previous episode, had been infested with these worms, and he's turned into one of these, you know, hive colony things that's just birthing these, you know, worms. And she essentially, you know, he watches her basically combat this stuff. She takes the CO2 fire extinguisher, and through that is able to essentially kill the worms and destroy the hive. And then he helps take one of the worms that had burrowed into her out of her, you know? So obviously he's helping them for some reason. There's some kind of benefit to that. More than likely, it's not just straight up benevolence. You know, there's I'm sure we'll find out down the line that something else is going on, and there might be different creatures and factions that want to help the Magnus Archives for their own interests, etc. But very fascinating episode with, like I said, lots of implications moving forward as to what's going on. So, I mean, like I said, also, you know, the name Michael alone doesn't really necessarily mean anything. I think there's been a couple of characters named Michael, but the one that sticks out to me, from what I remember, I think it was in the Calliope episode, but maybe I'm misremembering. But there was an episode at the end where John was talking about them doing the follow-up stuff, and he did like a genealogy thing, and Michael and I think Mary Key, who are, you know, Mary Key was Jared Key's mother, so maybe Michael is potentially, could be Michael Key, maybe it's Jared's father, you know, I don't know. Maybe, you know, he is who this monster and creature is, and maybe again there was some kind of split between the parents, right? And maybe Michael is trying to do something help, like he got cursed and is trying to do something to prevent this from happening to other people, or maybe again it's just a situation where it's in his best interest to help the Magnus Archives combat whatever Jane Prentiss is, because there's some kind of rival entity. Who knows? Hopefully we will find out, on the next episode of Dragon Ball Z. No, hopefully we will find out, in the future as this is going on. But this is a very fascinating episode. I'll have to comment on correcting that one since it's getting quite late on the end, but imagine that was true. Yeah. So, but all right, guys, that's going to do it for this one. Thank you guys for watching. Hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, consider leaving a like and a sub, as it helps me and the channel grow. There is a join button underneath the video, as well as a link in the description to the YouTube membership benefits and tiers that I have to offer for my channel. So you can take a look at those if you would have any interest in, taking your support for my channel to the next level. There's also much playlists on the channel for other universes that have done reactions to the we've got the Magnus Archives here. There's the SCP Foundation, Warhammer 40k, Warhammer Fantasy, stuff like that. So you can check all that stuff out if you would have any interest in doing so. Thank you guys for watching. If you are still watching here at the very end, I greatly appreciate you taking the time to watch the video all the way through. I greatly appreciate the support. Hope you guys are having yourselves a wonderful day, and we'll see you on the next one.